You eat mold every day, and many of the things you eat are created by mold. Even my favorite beverage, tea, has trace amounts of it, and some teas contain a lot. Speaking of which, why don't you and I make a cup of tea, relax, and let's get into this moldy business. You like drinking soda? You might think that the citric acid in that drink comes from lemons, right? Well, most of the citric acid you consume is actually made by growing a black mold called Aspergillus niger, usually in a slurry of molasses. Interestingly, many of the strains used are genetically modified to produce higher yields. So how exactly did they get all that nasty mutant mold out of your favorite fizzy drink? In short, they filter the mold from the acid-containing nutrient liquid, crystallize it, and it's off to the races. Problem is, there could still be small fragments of it left over sometimes. It's not just soda. Citric acid is everywhere. Try reading some of the ingredients on the food you buy. Citric acid, among sugar, is in almost everything. So why don't they just use lemons? That's where citric acid was first discovered, so it would make sense to use them, right? Lemons will set fruit once or twice a year. They need a lot of water, and on a good year, one lemon tree sets up to 600 fruits. On average, each lemon contains about 3 grams of citric acid. Considering that, one lemon tree can produce about 4 pounds of citric acid every year. That isn't nearly enough to support the vast uses of this substance. Mold, however, grows to maturity in a matter of days or weeks, and the amount of acid produced can be scaled up as much as you want. Also, mold doesn't take up acres of land like lemon trees do. It's just a far more efficient production method. So yeah, you eat mold juice all the time. This is besides the fact that you breathe in thousands of mold spores and inadvertently swallow them every day. Mold is usually measured in colony-forming units per cubic meter of air. Colony-forming units meaning each unit could be cultured and grown into a new mold colony. Inside of your home, there are an average of 200 to 500 colony-forming units of mold per cubic meter. So that's why the bread gets moldy so fast. Outdoors, the level is even higher. These levels can fluctuate from 1,000 up to 10,000 colony-forming units per cubic meter of air. The levels can spike during rainy periods. Autumn and fall time are when the spore counts are the highest. This is most likely due to all the organic matter deposited by plants during the season, as well as high rainfall and moisture. With each breath, you take in up to 10 of these colony-forming spores. Right now, you're breathing them in. Now don't go throwing out the soda just yet. The black mold you might be thinking of is completely different than the mold used in industry. There are actually tens of thousands of different types of black molds, besides the millions of other mold species. The toxic black mold that grows in homes are species of Stachybotrys mold. This kind of mold can cause serious health problems, although it may not be as prevalent as you think. This nasty mold is very finicky about where it likes to live or grow. A great place for it to call home is somewhere dark, damp, and with direct access to a steady water supply. Even then, many times this type of mold only produces toxins within specific environmental conditions. Most molds won't even grow until the relative humidity gets over 50%. Many of your favorite foods can be contaminated with mold. Some of the most common foods of concern are cereal grains, peanuts, chocolate, tea, and coffee. Yes, tea and coffee contain mold toxins. Although dangerous levels are almost always caused by improper storage, there will always be trace amounts of them. The worst offenders of mold contamination are usually peanuts and grains. Those fuzzy buddies just love all that starchy nutrients. In the United States and many other countries, there are limits to how much mold is allowed in food products. Still, there have been instances where these foods exceed safe levels. So why is everyone afraid of mold anyways? One word:
Mycotoxins.
These are poisons created by mold to defend themselves, or through other metabolic processes. If a predator eats a mold and gets sick, It might think twice about the next time it has a chance to devour that tasty, fuzzy stuff. Mycotoxins like aflatoxin, ochratoxin, and patcholine, among others, can be quite difficult to deal with since most of them are very stable compounds, meaning chemically and thermally breaking down these toxins in food is nigh impossible. These compounds can persist for years without breaking down. What's worse, aflatoxin and ochratoxin are known human carcinogens. These toxins can harm almost every system in your body. Some of the symptoms of mycotoxicity can be fatigue, headaches, nausea and vomiting, brain fog, anxiety and depression, among a host of other nasty symptoms. Now, as you may know, some foods rely on mold for their production process. Your favorite cheese? Well, it's basically just a moldy and sometimes yeasty block of milk solids. Blue cheese mold was actually discovered inside of a cave. Yum, cave mold. Now, most of these cheese molds don't produce harmful mycotoxins. However, blue cheese mold strains produce Rock14C, a mild neurotoxin, although it's generally safe in the quantities found in the cheese. And yes, this is all blue cheese. So, can other cheeses contain mycotoxins? Yup. Sometimes they make their way into these products anyways. Say if a cow was eating some hay that had been laying around long enough to develop these toxins, their milk would in turn be contaminated. So cheese made from that milk would also have them. Mold is in our homes, our environments, our foods and drinks, some of it purposeful and others unavoidable. It's everywhere all the time. So should you stop drinking soda or eating cheese? Should you travel around like a boy in a bubble? Well, for most people, the mold we encounter in our daily lives poses very little risk. For immunocompromised or health-complicated individuals, mold can pose a threat. There's a condition called aspergillosis where mold can actually grow inside of your lungs. However, most of the danger around mold for the common person is because of the presence of mycotoxins. So you might be a little grossed out, but mold really isn't that big of a deal. Just don't go eating any fuzzy apples or pastel-colored bread. You'll be fine.